Okay, so I've been meaning to film this video forever, for like a year since I finished HSC. I'd end up just talking to myself for like 2 hours, which I'm already getting carried away with now. So I'm going to try again. It's because I have a couple of mates starting HSC year, and like 2 of my best friends are starting right now, and they want like tips and stuff. So this is things I did to help me get a 98.8 Atar. Also, just saying, HSC does not matter, like it's not the end of the world. To be honest, I was freaking out, like I would have major panic attacks and just be studying way too much, and I just was like, this is so important, this matters so much. Like I thought it'd be the end of the world if I didn't like come first in an exam or like do well in an exam. And yeah, so it doesn't really matter. To be honest, the stress of it wasn't worth it because I didn't need that high of a mark. I didn't have a course I wanted to get into that needed that high of a mark, but I'm the type of person who, if I do something, I want to do the best I can in it. So I'm competitive as well, but like this is just for if you like, it's good to try, but like don't kill yourself doing it. But yeah, so this is if you want to just do your best, like yeah. Okay, so the first major tip is you have to stay really organized, and that also helps you with stress and just staying organized and on top of things. And if everything is not cluttered and just like clear and organized, then it is also like your headspace is organized. I'm not making any sense, but anyway, so stay organized. And I have this tip we first got taught from my PE teacher, who's also my mentor, and it is so helpful. So basically this like binder system. So you have a binder that you take to school every day, and in your binder you have like a sleeve, like a segment for each subject that you have. So I'd have a segment, and whatever work you were getting from your teacher that day or doing that day, you put in your binder, and then when you were done with that topic, you offload it into a binder at home, a bigger one where you put all your work in, and you have one for each subject. So this one could have PE and biology, and then maths, and so on. So say you were doing a dot point energy systems in PE, and your teacher was like, all right, finish that dot point. You'd take all that stuff out that you didn't need to bring to school anymore, and you'd offload it into your PE binder. I ended up having like 3 of these. So I'd start with the syllabus at the front of my binder, and then I'd label it with whatever the critical question was and what dot points it includes, and then I'd have it in order. So you just had everything you'd done in your binder at home, and you keep your school binder with whatever you needed for that day at school, and then you'd have all your work really organised and neatly on your shelf. I also went to IKEA and bought this Kallax shelf, it's called, the one with all the squares, and I like to keep all my stuff organised for HSC on it. Okay, yeah, so the binder thing is really good. And then also when I got to exams, I'd make an exam binder, and I'd put all of my notes and stuff in that, but I'll get to that when I get to like how to study for exams. So another big thing, this is like the most helpful thing for all of the HSC with being organised, is so have your syllabus for every topic in your binder at the front. So you know how I said you have a little section for each topic. So say this yellow one here is PE. By the way, I'll use PE for all my examples because it's the best subject. So this would be the PE section. At the front of the PE section, have your syllabus for PE. So your PE syllabus. So you have your syllabus at the front of each section, and then follow the syllabus. So every day, check what dot point you're doing. Say that day you did energy systems, that dot point. Make sure when you go home you do a summary for those. And I'd say probably typing, because I wrote summaries, and then when it got to exams I'd have to retype them before rewriting them. So I would just say type summaries as you go. Every single day I would get my summaries done for whatever topic we'd done that day, because I didn't want it to build up. So if we went through heaps of dot points at school, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have so many summaries, I have so much homework for tonight, because I wanted to get it done that day. So if we did energy systems, make sure you go home and type up summaries for that. So you want to keep a syllabus in the front of your binder for each topic. So then as you go through, this is the critical question, as you go through, you've done this dot point, so you make sure you've got a summary on it and also looking at the things you need to know for it, and then highlight or cross off as you go. I had done these summaries throughout the year. And on top of that, make sure you answer HSC questions for that dot point. So say you just done your summaries, you need to answer a HSC question. Not need to, but like this is what I would do and my tips. So this is a 12 marker. So I would make sure every time I handed in a question, I would get 4 marks. And if I didn't, I would find out what I had to do to get 4 marks. So then I could edit it. So then by the time it got to the HSC and I was studying, I had done 4 mark questions for everything. So that's another reason to do practice questions to hand in, so you know what you need to add or change to get 4 marks. So, and then as you go through your syllabus, check off on the syllabus, like highlight it when you have your summaries and your HSC questions answered. And then when it comes to an exam, you can look at your syllabus and you should make sure that everything's highlighted on it. And if something's not highlighted, then you can go back and make sure you answer a HSC question or something on it. And what I did was every week when we'd finished our whatever we were doing in class, and I would make sure I had my HSC questions answered on it, I would hand them into my teacher and get feedback on them. And that's really important, because then when it comes to an exam, you've literally answered any possible question you could get given in an exam or in the HSC, because you've done a question on every part of the syllabus. So obviously they might not be the same question, but you know how to answer anything. Every dash point or dot point, I had answered a question on it. Okay, so with staying organised and making sure you answer questions every day and have summaries done every day, you have to use your time really wisely. So obviously some people might be like, that's impossible, I can't do that, I've training tonight or something. Like, I didn't miss training once during HSC. Another thing is, for me, training was more important than HSC. In saying that, I got a stress fracture, and was in a cast and on crutches for 4 months during HSC, which is probably the best time to have had that injury. But at the same time, I still trained every day. Like, I just did like pull sessions in my cast, or like one-legged gym sessions. My coach used to always say, she always says, you can be really, really good at 2 things. So I chose for that to be athletics and school. But when it gets to 3 or more, you can be okay at all of them, or good even, but you can't be like amazing at them. So like, that's when it comes to like social life and stuff like that. So I didn't have a social life. Now, I don't know, like I just didn't go to parties and like go out on weekends and stuff, but not that I do that anyways. For me, my training partners are like my best friends anyways. So going to training was good enough for socializing for me. And you just got to use your time wisely. So as I said, if we were doing so many dot points that day at school and I was like, oh, shit, I have so many summaries to do tonight, I'd just be like, that's great. Like, I'll go at lunch because I have training. Or like, I would stay after school and study, or study on the train to training and then after training. And I also would get to school an hour early every morning to get some homework done. And yeah, just using all your free time. And another thing is, I just really think giving up what you love or your sport is the most stupid thing to do for HSC, because the reason you are alive is to do what you want to do. So there's no point stopping to do what you want to do for HSC, like, unless what you want to do is get a good HSC. But anyway, and also you can't, like, physically you need a study break. So your study break could be your training session, like a 2-hour break at training or something. Like, you can do your sport, just don't go out, or like don't go on social media. Like, you need to use your time wisely. So that's why staying organised is so important, because when it came to an exam, you don't need to be like, oh my God, I'm going to die. There's not physically enough time, because you've got all your summaries done. You've got summaries and questions on everything. You just need to practice. So staying organised is so important. Some more tips for staying organised. With your binder, in this section here, I would have a notepad, and every day I would write down whatever dot points we did or whatever homework we got, and then I would keep that note in the to-do list kind of thing in the front of it and cross it off as I did it, which was also very satisfying, like crossing off, yeah, done, especially when you got to the last thing and you're like, oh, it's done. So like, say I had biology, maths and PE, and I had to do like a PE question, 3 biology dot points and a chapter of maths, and I had all of those in the thing, and say I did most of it, but it was like I had to go to bed and there was still some left to do. Then when I got to school an hour early the next morning, I would get it done then. Or say you had a free period the next day and you're like, oh sweet, I can use that. So you have to use your time wisely and then just cross it off, and that was a really good way to keep organised as well. So in the front of my binder, I would keep a list like this, and I'd write down each day the homework we got and cross it off as we went. Another really good thing with staying organised, so it's having a really nice space where you can study. So keeping all your study stuff organised, but also your space you study in organised. So as I said, I bought that shelf from IKEA to organise all my things. I also had a desk in my room where I just like used it as a really nice space, and I'd like write notes and stick them around my wall and stuff like that. And yeah, and I kept that space really organised and neat. Another really thing that was good for me was I know a lot of people like studying at the library, so they'd always be like, meet up at State or whatever, like to go to the library during like study times, like trials or HSC, and I literally was so happy with studying at home. I liked it so much better because I had all my stuff there. I didn't need to cart all these binders and stuff to a library. I didn't need to waste travel time. I would wake up and be ready to study. So like and also because I was on crutches, it was the biggest trek to get out and go around. Like I still studied at school and stuff like that, but in like the HSC holidays, all I had to do was get up, I would have breakfast, then I'd study for hours, have lunch, study for hours, train, dinner, study, bed, repeat. It sucked, but whatever. It was just for quite a while. Okay, so another thing I did was every day when I did those time periods of studying, I would time on this stopwatch. It's dead right now, but I always wore this watch. I never took it off. So when I started studying that morning, I'd press start. Every time I had a break, even to go to the toilet, I'd press stop, and I'd aim to get it to around 10 hours a day. So if it got to like 10 p.m. at night and I was tired, but it was 9 hours, I was like, whoop, too bad, I have to do another hour still. And yeah. No, just for the like 6 weeks of the HSC. It wasn't all year round. Another thing is with studying, because I freaked out my training partners because like they knew that I was like going crazy. It's not 100% all year round. Like, because we went to the store gift in year 12 and we want to go stall again, and my training partner is like, oh my god, you didn't go in year 12? I was like, yeah, I did. She was like, what? How did you get like a good Atar? And I was like, it's only when it gets to exams where you have to be like killing yourself. Like just all year round, you just have to stay on top of homework, summaries, questions, stay organised, and then by the time it gets to an exam, you'll be sweet. But when it gets to an exam, you have to smash out like those weeks of studying. But like I went to Australian All Schools and I had the week before my exam week. You can do other things as long as you stay on top of it throughout the year. Okay, so that's my tips for throughout the year. I probably have stuff I'm missing, but then I also know this is the reason my video was like 3 hours last time, because I just kept going on. So I'm just going to the next bit now. So the next bit is when it actually comes to exams and tests and like how to study. Okay, so preparing for exams. So the biggest thing is you are already ready for the exam. Okay, well you're not, but like you've got everything you need to be ready for it, because throughout the year you've done summaries and HSC questions. So when it comes to an exam, you can get your syllabus out that you've been highlighting throughout the year and make sure it's all highlighted or all checked off or whatever. And then you're like, okay, cool, I've got my summaries and a HSC question answered for everything. Now I just need to practice. Okay, so you've got your syllabus checked off. Maybe you'll look at it and be like, oh my god, I haven't done a practice question for female athletes in sport, for sports medicine. And like, this is why I constantly check it throughout the term, and then say it's coming out to a test, you're like, that's the only one I haven't done. Write out a question, hand it in, you're sweet. So what I would do is when it gets to an exam, print out all your summaries and your questions. I say print because this is my tip now. When I did it, I typed up I wrote out, I was like, I'm handwriting, and handwriting is so good when it gets to studying, but throughout the year, it's not as sustainable, to be honest, now I think about it, because when it would get to an exam, I wanted to have printed notes, summaries and questions to then write again. So I I remember typing everything up again, which took ages, and then writing it all out again, which took forever. So when it gets to an exam, print off your summaries and your questions. And then what I did was make Bibles. So before, and also flashcards. I did flashcards for my half yearly, but never going back. Bibles are everything. So I did this for biology and PE, Bible. And basically what I did, I have my contents in the front with all the topics. Example, factors affecting performance, and then CQ1 is how does training affect performance? And then training is like the dot point energy systems, and then whatever the next ones were. I don't really remember them off by heart now. So I would start with every dot point and dash point, and I'd read looking at my notes, and you might get out your big binders where you filed all your stuff off throughout the year. So you've got all your stuff you need, and you just make notes to remember things. So you've got all your notes for everything. So like, and you set it out how you want. It might help to do like things like this. Okay, another helpful tip with the Bible, so this is biology, is there's my contents page. It is, so when you write out the Bible, find out what works for you, what helps you remember, what helps you really properly learn something instead of memorizing it. And like, for example, using heaps of highlighters, doing fun things like drawing diagrams, just the way you set it out. And it also makes it less like, it makes it more interesting. It's not as just like writing and copying. You actually are learning. Things like that. Things that help you remember and help you understand it. Like, another thing is I annoyed my teachers so much. Like, as I said, I'd hand in a question like every day. They'd be like, oh God. Like, sometimes I'd hand them in so much, just so much work. And they were amazing. I was very lucky with amazing teachers. They were very helpful. And if I didn't understand something, I saw this like meme, and it was like, when your teachers explain something so many times and you still don't get it, so you just say yeah and pretend to get it. Like, legit never would happen. I would stay after school for 2 hours if I had to keep asking, what is it? Like, I needed to know something very well. So writing, tables, all your notes. So this I called my PE Bible. So it's like a Bible, literally. And I had all my notes, everything I wanted, all my examples for every topic in here. Another thing I did with these revision books that my teacher gave me, but it's really just the same as the Bible. So I just basically did the Bible like multiple times, which is good because it obviously reiterates it, ingrains it. You're very, like, it's something, like, it's just, you know it off by heart. But at the same time, it is time consuming. And then after doing Bibles, I would then do heaps and heaps of practice past papers. So I'd print off like the last 10 years of HSC papers and trial papers from school and other schools. You can find other schools' trial papers online. Another thing, as I said, I do heaps of questions. So this is all of Core 1, so health priorities in Australia. Then Core 2, I just have this big list of all the past HSC paper questions. It has a year of what HSC it's from. With just heaps of, I just went through it and highlighted them as I went. Some of them I just answered myself, but because I did all of these past papers, as I did a past paper, I would read this and make sure I answered these questions and like highlighted them as I went. And I would do them all. And the reason I wanted to do a Bible first was because if I just opened a paper and started, I tried that once and I freaked out because I was like, I know nothing, I'm going to fail. And then I was just like, no, I don't know nothing. It's just like, why would I remember something we studied 5 months ago if I haven't read over it or something? So that's why I did the Bible first, so then I could just do practice papers without, as much as I can. Like, I'd sometimes have to look back at notes, but I could do them just off by heart, like you'd have to do in an actual exam. Similar to this, when we got to exams, I would write a checklist of all the overall things I wanted to do. That was my last exam, so I stopped using this. But I would cross off when I got through things for each exam, and they were just the overall things I wanted to do. So like one dot point is past papers. I did the little tally next to it. Each day I would do a little study list for what I wanted to do like that day. For example, this particular Wednesday, I also wrote that I had the sports doctor and training. But I would write like, finish my Bible for the dot point improving performance, do the 2017 trial paper, do a sports med CQ1, do a maths paper, stuff like that on this particular Monday. I did Maths Chapter 8 review, some questions from the Carrying Bar trial paper, some PE questions. This day I did a Mod B question, an area of study, a time my essay. I did some PE trial papers, stuff like that. Another thing is writing out the Bible was so important. Like, writing is so important because that helps you actually remember. You have muscle memory, it's slower, and it's good practice because you have to write. So, writing. And one other thing I did to kind of measure how much I'd done, I used these pens, and it says on the packet each one writes like over 1 kilometre or something. And every time it ran out, I'd put it in a little pile and I collected them all until I had this huge bunch of pens I'd gone through, because you have to handwrite when you're studying in the actual time period before the HSC. Like, that's my tip. And yeah, so I wanted to write like kilometres of notes and essays. And another thing I did with this was, just like when you did your summaries and HSC practice questions throughout the year, I also would print off a new, fresh syllabus when I was studying, and as I did the Bible, I'd tick off what I had studied, and I'd also tick off when I'd done the HSC questions on it. So I'd make sure I'd answered HSC questions again on everything. There might be different HSC questions. There might be more than one on the same dot point, but that's what I did, and that's how you can ensure you've done everything you can to do your best. So throughout the year, so the big tips are, throughout the year, staying really organised with your binders, your space at home, keeping on top of your summaries, and having HSC questions on everything you do throughout the year, using your time wisely, so before school, after school, at lunchtime. When it came to exams, like obviously, like for me as an athlete and as a teenager and as a human, sleep is a priority. So you need to be getting good sleep, like 8 hours a day you need at least. And like obviously you definitely need more than that as a teenager if you're training, doing HSC. But when you're doing HSC, sometimes you won't be able to. Like, so sometimes I'd be like, well, I'm just going to cop it and stay up really late and go to bed at I remember, because I used to always be like, in younger years, like, I went to bed so late last night, I went to bed 10:30, and everyone would be like, are you serious? That's so early. And then in HSC year, sometimes I'd be like, I went to bed so late last night, and everyone's like, oh yeah, what time? And I'd be like, 1:30, and they'd be like, okay, well, that actually is late for you. Obviously, you can't do it often, because then eventually, if you always did that, your work would deteriorate because you'd be tired. You need sleep for your brain as well. But sometimes, like, you're just going to have to stay up late so you don't let everything build up and pile on top of you. You have to stay on top of things. But they're my main tips for doing well in HSC.